Hey guys, it's Sarah from Just My Typewriter, and I know I said I was done buying typewriters, but that wasn't necessarily true. If you're anything like me, you might get ads for different flea markets on your Facebook Marketplace. I use Facebook Marketplace to search for typewriters in my area, vintage items, and every once in a while I'll get a posting for a flea market, which is an area where people can bring their wares and sell them. I have a couple local flea markets around the area, but one that I keep getting advertised for is this Golden Nugget Flea Market in Lambertville, New Jersey. Now this is about an hour-and-a-half drive from where I live currently, but I'm so glad that I made the trek over to Lambertville because the Golden Nugget Flea Market is kind of amazing. There were a lot of different elements here at this flea market. It was massive, all outdoors, so I did go on a cold and stormy day. I did run into typewriters like this Hermes typewriter, which I think the seller wanted like $150 for it. I did run into some typewriter crimes, including these two machines. And you can see where keys like this would go, unfortunately, at this station. I did look for some typewriter case keys. I've been on a hunt to find some more of them, but I had no luck. And the one thing I did buy from this flea market was this typewriter. I was walking by the table. Everything else that day had been kind of expensive. This is a fancier flea market. I walked past and just out of curiosity asked the seller how much this typewriter was. Didn't check it out, didn't look at it at all, saw it was a typewriter and just asked. And he said $5. Now, also if you're anything like me, when you hear a price like that, you do not hesitate and you just pay them. So I bought this little Montgomery Word Signature 100 typewriter for $5. Now this is an ultra portable typewriter, which means it's smaller than a portable typewriter and it usually comes in a carrying case or has a case topper with it. This Signature 100 is also a rebranded Brother machine. Now, Brother was a Japanese manufacturer of typewriters, and I've had a couple of their machines before, but often what they did was they would do licensing deals with big department stores to make their body style machines under the label brand those department stores would have. And one of the stores that utilized this was Montgomery Ward. Montgomery Ward was kind of like a Sears or a J.C. Penney's, and they had their own line of typewriters within their store. Now, if you've ever tried to look up the age of a Brother typewriter on the typewriter database, you might notice that they have a very different categorization. The serial numbers aren't listed in the typewriter database the same way they are for other brands, and this is because it's kind of hard to track the serial numbers for Brother machines because they manufactured under so many different labels. You might notice common characteristics across the different variations of machines, and these would tell you generally what sort of decade your machine might be from. So with this Signature 100, I started to look at the database and noticed that there was a couple different examples of this within the database. Most of them are from the early 1960s. 1960s. So this is a 1960s Signature 100. When I got it, it was a little bit rusty and it smelled really bad, but it wasn't not working. Everything on it seemed to be in pretty good shape. So I started by doing a quick little clean. I cleaned the case because I find that's where a lot of must ends up tending to rest when you get a new machine. Musty cases can lead to a typewriter smelling really bad over time. And I also cleaned out the machine using compressed air and then also using a variety of cleaners. Now, one of the areas on this machine that I thought could use probably the most help was actually the keys. The original keys to this machine would be a kind of bright white color. And there are a lot of different methods for getting keys to be more bright. A lot of people use developer or hair dye developer to help bleach some of their keys. I've never gone down that route. I've always gone the let's go in really thin coats of cleaner, scrub it with a toothbrush, and pray to the typewriter gods approach. In this case, I ended up using a newer cleaner to me. This is an OxyClean cleaner without bleach, and I found that this was really good at getting some of those stains around the keys off. Now, those stains come from somebody who is smoking a cigarette, and you get tar residue on the keys. It can yellow them, and that stuff is hard to get off. It almost stains, like seeps down into the key itself and stains it. So after one coat, you didn't really see that much difference, but after repeated coats, letting it sit for a while, taking a toothbrush to it, continuously wiping it off, I did manage to get some pretty good results here on brightening up these keys. Now, this is not foolproof and not every cleaner works for this. I've done this with Simple Green before, but in these cases I find repeated cleaning, continuously going back in over it and over it and over it, letting it soak a little bit, seems to be the most effective way to clean off some of this residue. There's still a little bit left on there and it adds some character, but at least they're a little bit brighter than they were. I also changed out the ribbon on this machine. Now, this is a bicolor, no, it's a monocolor. It is a one color machine. There is no color ribbon selector switch, but you can still put in a bicolor ribbon. In this case, I had a purple and black ribbon, so I just switched it upside down and put the purple on top, so now this machine types in purple. And here's a quick little type test of this $5 typewriter. So I did go in and do a little bit of research on this machine after cleaning it up, and here's some of the things that I found. Originally in 1963-1964, this machine was advertised as being $36.88. $36.88. That's about half the cost of a portable around this time. But when you adjust for inflation in 2024, it comes out to $363.68. But when you think about it, a new iPhone is over $1,000, and that's without the phone service. So if you compare the abilities of this machine to type, which is what they needed it for, it might balance out here. It still does have quite a few bells and whistles. For example, this does have single spacing, 1.5 spacing, and double spacing. It's also an 84 character keyboard. This is a little bit smaller, but pretty standard for ultra portables. They're trying to reduce weight. And when you look at the weight listed on this machine in some of the original advertisements, you were looking at about 12 pounds when the machine was in its carrying case. Now, they made a couple different variations of this carrying case. Mine is more briefcase style. Eventually, they also made this machine with a case topper, and that reduced the weight down to 9 pounds. I did find in the listing that this was called charcoal brown as a finish on the typewriter itself, which I think pretty accurately describes the color. And I also found this interesting. It is listed as the attaché model, which I should look what that means in French. It's short for attaché case. Attaché case, a small, flat, rectangular case used for carrying documents. Well, that's the kind of case this comes in, so I guess that makes sense. Now, mine does not have a paper rest on the back, and that's why I can kind of determine the age on this machine. Later models of Brother machines do have either a paper bail that is a wire loop or a singular arm that comes up. But this machine has no paper bail, and when I was looking at the listings of all the Montgomery Signature Award 100s in the typewriter database, I noticed a difference in finish. The older ones from 1963 have this textured finish to them, and the ones that are later in the decade have a much smoother, shinier finish to them. So I'm going to say that this machine that has no paper bailer in the back and has this textured finish is probably placing it around 1963. This is a solid little typer. It's pretty easy to use and very easy to transport. These ultra portables are designed to be easy to carry and to throw into a backpack and take on a train. They're also in these advertisements often targeting children or younger typewriter users, people who might be learning how to use a typewriter but need to be able to carry it around, move it around, or maybe don't need all 88 characters on their keyboard. It's a good beginner model, I think, for a lot of people. I like Brother machines. I think they're pretty easy to work on. I like that the bottoms on Brothers do come off in one panel. So instead of having an open bottom or later Smith Coronas that have a weird like hatch on the bottom, this one removes with 4 screws on the bottom, 2 screws on the back, and you can remove that whole bottom base plate and get to the mechanics of the machine. It is pretty shallow. I think it's listed at like 3.5 inches deep. So that does allow you to get in there and clean pretty well with an air compressor in between those pieces. So that's my $5 typewriter find. I think the typewriter market has kind of drastically shifted over time. You get waves of where it's more popular and more expensive to buy typewriters, where every listing seems to be hundreds of dollars. And then you'll go into markets where you can pick them up for $5, $25. They can be pretty affordable. I've been very lucky, but I've also set myself a cap. I will not purchase a typewriter over $25. Unless it's a Barbie typewriter. With this cap, I'm limiting myself on how many machines I do purchase, and when I purchase machines, I do kind of have in the back of my mind that I might be fixing them for someone else or preparing them to be sold so that someone else can enjoy that typewriter. This typewriter will be one of those. I've been able to clean it up, put a new ribbon in it. I think I'll be listing it for sale pretty soon as well. I like typing on it. It's a pretty easy feel. It is kind of louder and you do have to put a little bit more pressure on it, but I have a lot of typewriters behind me. And so anytime I can pick up a $5, $10, $15 typewriter, clean it up, and then release it back into the wild, I feel like I'm utilizing my typewriter knowledge in a way that helps more machines than just the ones that I am hoarding away in my dragon's treasure trove. I encourage you, if you find a cheap typewriter, pick it up. Even if it's going to be a parts machine for you, a $5 investment is nothing, and it keeps that typewriter from ending up in the trash. So I do recommend buying in mass when you can get them for that type of cost. And I've had a few other $5 typewriters. I find that the way that I approach collecting now has changed quite a bit, and little investments like this make it a lot more sustainable for me to get more typewriters, make more videos, but then also release them back into the wild. I do call myself the foster mom of typewriters. We're really lucky I haven't started doing that with cats yet. If you're interested in more typewriter content, I do have some other videos on this YouTube channel as well as on Instagram at just.my.typewriter. And I thank you all so much for watching and remind you, you're just my typewriter. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh, it caught my hair. Oh, shoot.